about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
And now for our feature presentation.
Balls Deep with Devin and Jovan.
Welcome, guys, to another episode of Balls Deep with Devin and Jovan. Today is our NBA special, and we're joined by two of our guests. So we're joined by our friend Harvey, also known as Down from 96. We'll give him an opportunity to, introduce himself in a minute. And then we're also joined by our guy from the Expansion Pack podcast, Danzel. So also known as Black Ice 8. So before we get started, we'll allow them to, introduce themselves. Harvey, why don't you start off?
What's up? I'm Harv. Don from 96. You can find me on Twitter at Don from 96. Got new music on the way coming January 1st. We're going to start streaming it. All I have is SoundCloud right now. Starting January 1st, we'll be streaming Apple, Spotify, Tidal, all of that good stuff. So you can find me Don from 96 on Twitter. Like I said, I don't got Instagram right now. I'll probably come back January 1st as well. Starting the year off fresh.
Hosting. To finish 2020.
He's working. No, he's working.
He's got to put in work.
All right, Denzel, it's your turn.
Yeah. What's going on, guys? I'm Danzel, a.k.a. Black Ice 8. I'm one of the hosts of the Expansion Pack podcast. It's a gaming podcast that we do every week. We're on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, pretty much anywhere you can think of. And myself, Black Ice 8 on Twitter, on Instagram at blackice8_gaming. So come check me out there.
And as we promised last episode, we weren't going to only have, the thoughts and analysis just from Lakers fans. Harvey is a Celtics fan, and then Denzel is, to surprise some people,
rare bunch.
One of
very rare. And the crazy thing is, we actually have another Magic fan as a friend, which is Manny from the Expansion Pack podcast, which is a rare bunch. But hey, I was able to
2 in one place.
come across 2 of them in my lifetime.
We got 2 out of the 5 in the entire
I actually know a Magic fan, but he lives in Orlando, so that's kind of
okay. That makes sense.
Right.
So to begin, we started off last episode to talk about the Westbrook Wall trade and how it went down. We broke down the details of it and what we thought. So it would be neat to get your guys' perspective on that move. Who you think won the trade, and ultimately which player do you think is going to help the team more this upcoming season? Denzel, do you want to start off?
Yes, sure. Man, who won the trade? I mean, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you, who won the trade, because I think it's an interesting trade overall. But by virtue of who this helps immediately, it would be the Wizards, right? I think the Wizards will actually end up making the playoffs this year, and I think in large part it's because of Westbrook. We'll see how he integrates with the team and how that all goes, but I think it's such a weird trade, to be quite honest. They're obviously really similar players in a lot of ways. Obviously, Westbrook is the better player overall, but their style is very similar. They're both high-energy players. They don't shoot particularly well. I would say, in my opinion, Wall is a better passer, and he plays a bit more unselfishly, if that's the right way to put it. I don't know how that's all going to look, and I think a lot of the trade, a lot of what happens with the trade really rests on if Harden stays with the team. If Harden stays with the team, I think it could end up being a better trade for Houston, but who knows? That's a real toss-up for me.
Well, yeah, so to bounce off what you said, though, is a lot of what you said is what I said. So I said, immediately it helps the Wizards just because Westbrook's actually going to be on the court.
Yeah.
And that's what they needed, because they desperately missed Wall with him being out, and they are a very similar player. I, however, think that Wall is the better player when healthy, just because and just because his passing ability and his ability to shoot. Like they're not the greatest shooters, but Wall is, I guess, more efficient when it comes to shooting.
Yes.
And that's why I said I think immediately it helps the Wizards. But if Wall's healthy, I think the Rockets won the trade just because I think he's a better fit next to Harden. Next to Harden than Westbrook was.
Yeah, I agree.
So it all depends on the health. But from the preseason game, Wall looked good.
He did.
Yeah, Wall looked good.
And also,
the other
thing about Houston. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, the last thing I was going to say in regards to Westbrook going to the Wizards is it obviously sells tickets, right? And they're a team that doesn't have a lot of hype around them or anything along those lines. So, if they want to try to get butts in the seats, well, depending on how things go with COVID. But, as far as drumming up hype, drumming up ticket sales, drumming up jersey sales, I think that's huge for the Wizards. So, yeah. Go ahead, Harvey. I'll let you go.
I was also saying, like, in regards to Houston, even if James Harden doesn't stay, whatever they trade for, I'm sure it would be a lot of valuable assets, a lot of good role players, a lot of good role players to put around Wall, a lot of good role players to put around Christian Wood. If DeMarcus Cousins is anywhere near healthy, that Houston team, whether they keep James Harden or not, I don't want to say they'll compete for a title, make some noise out there in the West, depending on how what's the coach, Steven Silas, how he handles that team.
Yeah, I to be honest, I don't know much about Silas, but I've heard good things
about him at all.
The only issue, the reason why is we talked about this before. Westbrook and Harden both wanted out mainly because of the owner. So the owner was was a lot of no, not Morey. Morey was the GM.
The
GM. Okay.
So the owner, I guess it was about his political views. He was a big Trump supporter. He was, donating to his campaign, and they didn't feel, like he was supporting them as players, being that, they're helping this entity of his business, just because obviously owners have a lot more than just the teams. So they didn't feel like it, so they didn't want to play for that guy at all. And then the one issue that they had was they wanted Ty Lue as their coach, and when they didn't make that happen, they just felt like they weren't, being listened to, and they wanted out. So, but Westbrook says he wanted out anyways. Not that he's beefing with Harden, but he just, as playing together, it just ain't gonna work out because he wants to be the alpha male, which I still don't think he'll be in Washington. But I guess he'll get more of that role back because he's gonna have the ball in his hand a lot more. Because Beal's not really as ball dominant as Harden.
Yeah.
I just hope this doesn't turn Bradley Beal into a spot-up shooter, try to find a way to get open. I hope he can still play his game. He has his moments to shine where it's on him. I feel like in clutch situations, the ball should be in Bradley Beal's hands. But you know how it is with Russ. So
well, I think agree with that. I mean, that's a big part of the reason that I was saying. I mean, obviously it seems like short term, the Wizards do win the trade, but I mean, just in general, I've said it in the past. I said it, I believe, on last episode when we talked about it. I think Westbrook is probably the hardest superstar to win with in terms of like championship wise, because he said it, he needs the ball in his hands, and you live and die by Westbrook. In my opinion, he's just too inconsistent. And I just don't know how it's going to work out with Bradley Beal, because I agree completely. I think Bradley Beal should be the guy taking the last shot. And so that's why I think the Rockets win this trade, and easily. And I think that obviously regarding Harden, the future is uncertain, but I do think he'll come to find that they have a nice little squad over in Houston. I think that he's going to end up staying.
Well, save that thought for
later.
No, we're actually going to talk about that next. But to finish up this part, I actually think that first round pick that Houston got in exchange, along with Wall, is going to play a big factor. Because the reason why they made this trade was to unload Wall's contract, which is arguably the worst in the league. So they were trying to get rid of that, and the only really person that can take it would be someone like the Rockets, who are trying to get rid of Westbrook. So it was, I guess the swap was fine, but getting that first round pick is going to play a big factor. And I think Westbrook's going to actually play well in Washington, just because Scott Brooks is the head coach in Washington, and he won his MVP season under Scott Brooks, especially after when KD left,
Mm.
he
Right.
he was able to maximize his talent. So it'd be interesting to see. They got some solid pieces in Washington. I'm not saying they're championship worthy, but they're up and coming. So,
Yeah, they're
but
definitely up and coming.
but to switch over to our next topic was actually Harden. So we talked about it briefly before, but it's actually getting more hectic. He seems to be sitting out. And now there's the NBA saying that he needs 6 positive COVID tests in order even to return. And it's crazy because the NBA season is actually like around the corner. And now he not only he's adding teams to his list of trade destinations. Like the Sixers are now he opened up to the Sixers, which seems to be the favorite to go there. For where he's going. He had the Heat, any other winning organization. So my question to you guys is, do you think he's going to be traded before the NBA regular season kicks off? And if so, where to?
I don't think it'll be till mid-season. I don't see it happening until mid-season. I want them to see. I feel like they're going to see how he feels about this team first, because they know he wants to leave, but they want him to. Like, I feel like they made this trade to say we're trying to make it better. We're trying to get John Wall. He's a pure point guard, but he's not as selfish as, like you were saying, as Russell Westbrook is. John Wall is going to let you shine. He's going to let you do what you got to do as long as he's not completely excluded. So they want him to see exactly how this team will work first. Christian Wood was a good addition. I really like that addition. I really like that addition a lot. I feel like if mid-season, maybe like about 30 games in, if they don't have at least 20 wins, I can see him trying to get out of there. I can see him trying to push to get out of there. But if they're on a roll, if they beat a couple contending teams, and it's not like maybe even convincingly, if they beat Clippers once, beat the Nuggets once, I don't think they'll beat the Lakers at all during the regular season. So, but if they beat some teams like that, then I think he'll feel it out, see how it is this year, and then they'll go from there. But if he goes anywhere, I do think it's going to be the Philly. It's going to end up being in Philly.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely would have to echo what Harvey's saying here. I don't think he's going to go anywhere in the offseason, at least. I think here's the first thing. Winning cures all, right? Like, that's essentially what Harvey said. If they're winning, if they do, steal a game from the Lakers, if they start cooking or whatever, Harden's going to look around and say, I think I like this team, right? Wall's over here cooking. He's dishing me the ball. He's letting me do my thing. Christian Wood, who came out of nowhere from last year, he can shoot on the perimeter. He's getting boards. Like, you have a team around you, right? You got pieces there. Why not stay? I really don't think he's going anywhere this season at all. I think they can win a bit. I don't necessarily know if they're going to be making it to the finals or whatnot, but they can definitely win. If he does get traded, though, I really can't see him going anywhere other than the Heat. I don't think the Sixers have the pieces to trade. I don't think the Nets have the pieces to trade. And the Heat have already come out and said, hey, we want this guy. And they're willing to trade Tyler Hero away for him. So, I mean, that's crazy, right? Like, that's a big thing. That's a big deal.
That's gonna be my question to you too. Is like, if they did trade for him, do you think Hero's in that trade package?
He has to be, or Harden's not.
Has to be. Yeah.
He has to be. Yeah.
But even if he does, but the thing is, they have a lot of young pieces to put in it that Hero doesn't necessarily have to be a part of it. Like Duncan Robinson's there. Mm-hmm. They got Goran Dragic, who I'm sure is going to be in the trade package. They have trade assets in terms of picks. They don't necessarily have to trade Hero. If anything, I think Hero, almost similar to how the Lakers were using Kyle Kuzma in the 80 trade, where they didn't really want to trade him at all. Mm-hmm. I try to keep Hero on the team as much as as long as I possibly can, even if we get a star player. But Harden, I think his play style, you got to kind of get rid of him just because he's so ball dominant.
Yeah. So here's my thing though. So you don't come out and say, like, the quote was, Hero is not untouchable. You don't come out and say that unless you're really willing to ship him away, right? Like, you're not. Yeah. There's so many things that does to your team just saying that out loud, right? Obviously, it can hurt his confidence because he's only a second-year player at this point. Look at Jimmy Butler, right? Jimmy Butler, like, he's a dog. He feels like Tyler Hero is a dog. He feels like Duncan Robinson's a dog. Do any of you here think that James Harden's a dog?
No.
What do you think that does for the chemistry of the team? Right, like I think it's interesting. I don't know.
Because the reason why I say he's not a dog, so offensively, he's probably one of the best scorers this league has ever seen. However, I don't think he's a dog because I think a dog would do anything possible to, get the job done. Absolutely. And I think what he's done in Houston, he's, obviously exploded from what he was in OKC, but I don't think he's done enough to, push the limits. And although there was that season where his team was, depleted and he still willed them to the playoffs, I think they were the 4th seed at best that season. I think that was probably the closest he's got to being a dog. But I think also in terms of chemistry, it messes it up because the reason why Jimmy Butler went there is to be the number one option. He wants to be the alpha. And getting Harden, we already know who's the better player, and that's Harden. So, how does Butler feel about it? I'm sure he'll welcome him with open arms because he just wants to win. But that's Butler's team, whether you want to agree with it or not.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, when you say alpha, are we talking because alpha can mean multiple things, right? The alpha dog on that team would be Jimmy Butler regardless, right? 100%. But as far as the number one scoring option, it would be Harden off rip. But it would still be Jimmy Butler's team because from what we've seen, in their past, who's the leader, right? Who is the one who's traditionally been the leader on their team? Hasn't been James Harden, even before he had Chris Paul there, before he had Westbrook there. He didn't really seem like the leader of that team. He was just kind of there, scoring, getting buckets, whatever, doing his thing. But in the flip side of it, every team that Jimmy Butler's been on, you could tell he's been the guy, right? He's been the person that other players look to. Even when he was out there with Cat, right? He was the leader of that team.
He's always pushing his other players to their limits.
But I also feel like what factors into that is the fact that James Harden is, I guess, so much more naturally gifted than Jimmy Butler is, that Jimmy Butler has to rely on those kind of, intangibles to, up his game and make those around him better as well as himself. I mean, that's why I feel like Jimmy Butler has to be a dog in the sense where James Harden may not feel like he has to have that mentality because he relies more on his skill set than he does his work ethic. Although I don't think having a lot harder work ethic would hurt Harden in any way. I just feel like he realizes how skilled he is, how much talent he is, that he relies more heavily on that. Whereas Jimmy Butler knows I might not be as talented, but I'm going to outwork every single guy on the court. And I think that's really the biggest difference between the two players.
But also, too, I think in terms of, if I was the GM of the Heat, I'd make it happen. Just for the simple fact that, the one issue that every team that Harden's been on has been defense. And the Heat were one of the best defensive teams in the league. And they just got Avery Bradley, who's going to just help that. So trading Hero and Duncan Robinson, that you're trading away shooting. And you're ultimately getting one of the best scorers in the league, if not the best scorer in the league. And the reason why I say arguably is KD when healthy is the best scorer in the league. There's no question about it. But Harden has been the scoring leader for the past 2 years. Maybe 3. But my thing is he's one of the best scorers in the league. So you're trading away shooting and getting scoring, not just shooting. And so, but about being the leader too is just look at Golden State. Golden State, the best player in that team is Stephen Curry, and there's no question about it. But Draymond is the heart of the team, and he brings that passion. He brings that dog mentality, and I think Butler would have to take a similar role to Draymond. Obviously, he's better than Draymond, and he's gonna have a bigger role than Draymond on the Heat's team. But he's gonna have to, be that dog to push a Harden or that star player, whether he wants to take the step back or not. But I think the biggest concern is when the game's on the line, who's the ball, whose hands is the ball in? Because Butler wants to hand the ball in his hands, but Harden is Harden, and he usually has the ball in his hand no matter what. So
see, I don't think that Jimmy Butler necessarily has a problem giving up the ball in that situation when the other player is James Harden. In my opinion, I feel like Jimmy Butler is a win. I want to win. I want to win more than anything. I mean, we've seen that last year. So if you have a guy like Harden, I don't see anywhere where you have a problem where Jimmy Butler's like, yeah, you're taking that last shot because, we all know what Harden can do offensively.
I have two questions though for you guys. Okay. First off, you think that those two personalities are going to mesh well? Like, we know that Jimmy Butler pushes people, right? He's going to push James Harden to play defense, and it doesn't seem like anybody's really been able to do that. How do you think that James Harden's going to just, I don't know, you think those two personalities are going to just kind of mesh together? I understand that Jimmy Butler wants to win and he'll defer to him as far as scoring goes, but as far as like what we've seen from James Harden in his past and his last lackadaisical effort on defense, like, you think that's going to fly?
No. So I'll answer first. I'll say no immediately and say I don't think it'll mesh. However, James Harden has been more open to playing defense. I think it was last season his steals went up. I'm not saying that his defense was a lot better, but he was poking the ball out here and there a lot more frequently than he did before. But I don't think they'll mesh. I'll let someone else answer.
I don't think they'll mesh either, but I think the culture in Miami would make it work. I feel like they'd be like, having Pat Riley out there, having guys like, James Harden's a real fashionable guy. He likes to be in the camera. So having guys like Tyler Hero out there with him, I feel like him and Tyler would connect well. Being that Jimmy sees what he sees in Tyler, I think that three right there would, of course, they'd have to trade him, actually. So never mind.
Yeah.
Actually, they just put my own, they just blew everything out the window. But but even still, the culture in Miami, it's a real dog culture. You got to go down there. You got to be ready to work. You got to be ready to, Pat Riley's not going for none of that. He don't do the divas. He's not. If you act like a diva, he's gonna say something about it. He's never been. He's never hit. He's never was afraid to say anything about it. So having guys like Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler and Eric Spoelstra and Bam, guys who work, guys who if you surround yourself with people who want to work, you're gonna end up. You're gonna work. You're not just gonna be. I don't see him being that. And I see Jimmy Butler as being as aggressive as he is. He strikes me as somebody who sit James Harden down. Like, look, I know you want to hoop. I know you do this. I know you want to do that. But just work with us here. Just work with us here. Don't be that guy who has to be over there and we're over here. And you gotta just work with us. We can win. Like, I feel like they can win. They can definitely win a title if James Harden were to go there and they were to still be able to keep Jimmy, Bam. Precious is really good. I think Precious is going to be a really good rookie. Keeping guys like that, I feel like they can definitely compete for a title. And I think James Harden, he's acting like he wants to compete for a title for real. So, that should be able to get through his head at least.
Yeah,
I think his best chance of winning a title is going east. But
yeah, I have to agree. I have to agree with Harvey because the culture in Miami seems almost like it's contagious. Really, they all immediately bought in, and that's really why this shocked everybody last season. And I think Harden is tired of hearing people say that he can't win the championship the way he plays. So I think if he wants to win the championship, and he goes to Miami, he's gonna have no choice but to put that work in and to be a dog. I think everybody in Miami currently and that, just being the way they are, I think that'll rub off on him. And I think he'll see that, I got to put this work in. I got to do what these guys are doing because I'm tired of hearing every year that I'm not, in the MVP conversation. I'm tired of hearing that I can't win a championship. I think he's just tired of hearing that. And if he went to Miami, I think he would have no problem putting that work in.
So I have two things. One thing is regarding what you said. So I don't think so. Like Kobe was one of the ones who said that he didn't think Houston can win a championship the way they play, and I don't think it was more on what Harden was doing because he was a huge fan of Harden. I think it was more a criticism on Mike D'Antoni's offense, and with Mike D'Antoni not being there anymore or wherever he goes outside of Brooklyn, Mike D'Antoni won't be there. So I think he'll have a better chance of winning a championship now that he's not under Mike D'Antoni. But my other thing is a lot like you mentioned Westbrook being the hardest superstar to win with. My thing is Harden might be the hardest to win with in regards to, Houston, they brought in Dwight Howard, they brought in Chris Paul, they brought in Westbrook to be with Harden, and everything has not worked out. It's all went to shits immediately. Like, and when the acquisitions were happening, everyone was like, "That's a great move," but as you can see, it wasn't as good as everyone thought it to be. and it could be more on D'Antoni's offense, like I said, but that's a question on Harden as a superstar as well. Is he that hard to play with? And I'm not saying it's more his personality. I think it's just his play style.
So I got something to add to this too. I had the second question, but I think I'll just reframe it a little bit. But you guys mentioned the whole concept of being in Miami and how the culture changes you and so on and so forth. And I actually do really agree with that to a large extent. But from what we've seen in the past with the Rockets, they've had a culture of defensive players. Maybe not necessarily D'Antoni, maybe not necessarily certain other pieces, but I understand what Devin said in regards to Dwight Howard, but I'll kind of wash him out for that. Like he was kind of acting like a clown at that time. But he had Chris Paul on his team. He had Westbrook on his team. Those two guys are dogs. Like they play defense, right? Like they give their everything. They had Clint Capella on the team. Like that dude could play defense. Like they had a pretty defensively stout team at a point in time. And he was always the outlier. He was always the one person who wasn't playing defense. And I agree with Devin's statement that as far as the hardest superstar to win with, I think Harden might be it. I think Westbrook and Harden may be a 1A, 1B type of situation.
You're not wrong. Well, yeah. I have to say this in a way to kind of defend Harden, but not really, because I mean, I don't disagree. But you do have to remember, I mean, his best opportunity, in my opinion, to win with Houston was when he had Chris Paul. I mean, they were having their best season, by far with Harden, and then they lost Chris Paul. And they lost Chris Paul in the playoffs, and it was literally just Harden at that point. And Chris Paul was the person who pushed James Harden to that point where, all right, we're going to make this jump from just being a playoff team to a championship team. And having lost Chris Paul in the playoffs, it took a huge hit. So I feel like that season, it's kind of hard to judge whether or not, it's just hard to win with Harden based off the fact that his best opportunity to win, he lost his second best option. You know what I mean?
But I feel like Chris Paul made the difference to the rest of the team. I don't feel like he changed James Harden as a player. And I mean, just because like Chris Paul goes away, you don't just miraculously lose like all the things that Chris Paul should have taught you, right? Like, I'm not saying this to be funny, but
it's true.
Yeah. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like he's had all these defensive-minded players, all these give it their all, and that didn't change him. I think if there is anywhere that would change him, it would be the Heat. But I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith. But to my other question though, so we all talked about the culture of the Heat. We all talked about Tyler Hero and how he fits so well into that culture. Why would you trade away someone like because assuming that they would have to trade him away? Why would you trade away someone like a Tyler Hero to get a James Harden who may not necessarily be a fit? I actually don't agree that that team is enough to put them over the top by just inserting James Harden, right? Like, I don't think that that's going to help them beat the Lakers, in my opinion. So if that's not, I mean, you guys could disagree for sure, but like, if that's not the piece, then what's the point in going through all that effort?
Well, if I'm the Heat, like inserting James Harden into a team like with so much promise, like it's kind of hard to pass up. But if I'm the Heat, I wait it out and I go after Giannis. And just because I think Giannis is a better fit for that culture. And with Giannis, you're able to keep Tyler Hero.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So I think with, Giannis, Bam, and Jimmy, and then you add, Hero and maybe some other pieces outside there, because I'm pretty sure Duncan Robinson's not going to stay. I think that's a better fit.
Let's not forget Kendrick Nunn, undrafted rookie last year, who was playing out of his mind, especially late in the season too. I mean,
But he went MIA. That's the thing. Is he was having a really good season, like rookie of the year season, and then they put an APB out for him because that's when Goran stepped up and took over. But, I guess we'll shift over to our next topic. And it's similar. It's related to Harden, I guess you can say. But who do you think is the next star or superstar that will be traded in the NBA? And could it be Harden?
I mean, honestly, I feel like the obvious choice is Harden, just for the simple fact that he is unhappy. There's also been talk of him holding out, which is it might just force the hand of Houston to, make a move on that, because you can't just not have your best player not playing. So like I said, I feel like the obvious choice is him, just based off the fact that there's so much going on in that situation, the uncertainty. But other than Harden, the only other superstar I could see moving is possibly Giannis. That's really it. But I think it's Harden. I think that's the obvious choice.
But my thing is, if I'm Houston, I don't move him at all. I mean, you have the advantage. He has 2 years on his contract left, and you have the advantage of he's gonna get fined if he doesn't play. Yeah. So if he sits out, that's on him. He's gonna lose money. It's coming out of his pocket.
That's the thing. I think
just wait it out.
I think the obvious choice for who could possibly get traded is Harden. I don't think it happens, though. I think he's going to be in Houston at the end of the season. I have to agree with Denzel, what he said earlier. I think by the end of the season, he will still be in Houston.
Got you.
I think if Houston isn't winning as many games as they feel like they should be winning, then I feel like he's going to force his way out of there. He's going to. I don't know if he takes the mellow route. I'm hurt. I need to sit down for a couple months, whatever the case is. But he's gonna find his way out of there.
Okay. I think, and this I'm probably only saying this because I'm a Magic fan, because nobody else has really got this on their radar. But I actually think Aaron Gordon will probably be the next star to get traded. I think his time in Orlando's done, which really, really pains me to say because I don't necessarily want to see him go. But I think. So I have two different things. The main reason why I don't actually think this is going to happen is because our brass has gone ahead and said that they want to run it back with the same squad. And it doesn't really seem like we've made too much effort to add too many new pieces, to make a lot of trades. But as far as value goes, I saw a report that said they had 10 different teams calling us about getting Aaron Gordon. One of them I suspect may be the Warriors.
Yeah,
I actually kind of feel like there may have been a package to get Aaron Gordon over to Golden State in exchange for maybe Andrew Wiggins, because it really doesn't seem like anyone likes Andrew Wiggins. I mean, I would love for us to do it if we could push him over there, get Wiggins, and maybe get a couple picks involved. I think it might make a lot of sense. But I also don't think our brass is really in a position to admit defeat just yet.
Well, for you guys, we've talked about this before. As I think his time in Orlando is done as well. It just doesn't make sense for, like you said, for them to say, let's run it back, just because you guys have been like the 7th, 8th seed in the East, and the East at time or the past couple of years is the weaker conference. So if you're the 7th and 8th seed in the East, do you really think you're going to win the championship when you're consistently in that category? You're not making that leap to go up. So I think your
especially when the other teams are getting better.
Exactly.
Yeah, so your best chance of getting rid of him was Golden State, I think, prior to the draft. I'm not saying you can't get rid of him now, but I'm pretty sure they would have threw in the number 2 pick, and you could have got a LaMelo or a James Wiseman if you guys wanted to go the big man route per usual.
Yeah, but I would have preferred Wiseman.
But I think if anything, Gordon, this is probably his best chance of not getting traded this season, just because Isaac is injured and out for season.
Yeah.
So his role is going to expand. But if I'm Orlando, I still pull the trigger just because with his injury history, you don't know how his value is going to fluctuate from now to the end of the season. So I say get rid of him while he's hot and his value's high. But
I think the person we really should be getting rid of to get out of that 7th and 8th seed is Vooch. Vooch is the one we need to get away from, because Vooch is our offense, right? Like everything we do runs through him, and it's not for the best though, right? He's great. Don't get me wrong. He's obviously an all-star caliber center, whatever, what have you. But we have better players around him. I think Aaron Gordon is a better player if you give him the chance to shine. I think Markelle Fultz, I mean, we'll get into this a little bit later, but little spoiler word, like he's up there for me as a potential most improved player. I think if you give those people a chance to shine and you stop making everything go through Vucevic, who's very predictable, and I think you can shut that down pretty easily in the playoffs. It changes the entire dynamic of the team. I think he's the one who needs to get traded. You need to let Mo Bamba get his shine because he's a much more athletic player. And
I was going to say that you have Mo Bamba and you invested in a top pick in him. Why not, allow him to play? But for me, I think the next superstar that's going to get traded is Blake Griffin. And the reason why,
that's great.
The next topic is, we're going to be, I'm not spoiler alert, but the Pistons are probably one of the worst or the biggest losers this offseason. And the reason why I say so, they had a great draft because they turned, I think they had one pick in the entire draft to like 3 picks in the first round. So they did well in terms of the draft. They got Killian Hayes, who's going to be a stud. But in free agency, they went out and picked up like 3 different big men. They got Mason Plumlee, who they overpaid. They got Jeremy Grant, who I think was a good pickup, especially with his expanded role opportunity over there. And they got Jahlil Okafor. So I feel like the writing's on the wall. Blake Griffin is heading out. They're clearly rebuilding, and he's basically in a win now mode for his career because his injury is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But his potential is really well. As his career has went on, he's only become a more efficient scorer. He's not just dunking on everybody. He's actually shooting threes, mid range, and things like that. So I think getting him out of there is probably the next superstar to go. Where do I say he goes? I have no idea who would be interested in the Blake Griffin at the moment. I thought of Kevin Love as well but I think his number have been Portland, but I think Portland's set right now. So I think one of those two move, but I'll say Blake Griffin's the obvious choice. I just don't know where.
I probably would have said Boston before the Tristan move. I don't know. It would have made sense for Boston, but
I think you guys could still get him.
Could.
Because with Tristan, I'm not so sold on him. I think he'll help you guys defensively. He'll help you guys defensively, but now he's already going to miss the season opener in terms of injury, and his potential has depleted since getting paid. And I also think it's that Kardashian curse, man. I'm telling you,
Kardashian curse. But I think we're gonna give Robert Williams a lot of. I think he's getting a lot of time this year playing center. Robert Williams, he'll get a lot of time playing center. So I think Tristan, he's just there just for insurance because we didn't make any other moves for any big men in the offseason. We could have super undersized. I mean, we got Taco. I mean, average is out. And he can get garbage time. That's it. He only plays when we're up by 15, 20.
That's because his knees ain't it. He only can handle so much.
I never understood to begin with. We're never gonna get into that.
You guys signed him as an undrafted free agent. He never got drafted.
Oh, he didn't. I thought he was our last pick. That was Carson Edwards was our last pick.
Yeah, Edwards is nice.
Carson Edwards was our last pick that year.
Oh, you picked him up as an undrafted free agent. So I think that was a good signing, but you got to limit his minutes. That's the thing. He's almost like a Boban, but I think Boban is more durable.
Definitely more durable, and he has a little more skill. Like Boban actually can make like offensively, he can make something happen. For Taco, he has to be right next to the hoop, already about to score when he gets the ball. Like he can't move.
But the thing is, he just turns around and just
turns around
puts
and
it in the
hoop.
but I think it was more of an investment too. I think you guys are going to try to help him build his skill. But
yeah, definitely.
Shifting over to our next topic before it's our last topic of the segment. Before we take a break. So I mentioned biggest loser already. So spoiler alert. But so who's your biggest winner or loser, or winner and loser of the offseason?
Hold up, I wrote this down somewhere. 1 second. Biggest winner.
You could even mention like your favorite move if you like it.
Honestly, I had number 1 on my list. I feel like the Lakers had the strongest offseason. I feel like the Lakers, after winning a championship, still made the most necessary moves to make their team even better. A lot of teams who should have Clippers made a few moves, but I don't think those moves are enough to deal with what the Lakers put together over there. They put together a team of starting fives, depending on what team they're playing for. Like the first five off the bench for the Lakers can definitely start in the East somewhere for sure. Like it's crazy how like what Pelinka's doing out there, how he's putting everything together, how it's like everyone, and they're not just grabbing random players, they're grabbing players for specific reasons. They're grabbing players who complement who else they'll be playing besides even coming off the bench. It's the Lakers. I feel like the Lakers definitely have an A++ offseason. They're the only team with an A++ offseason.
No, I mean, I agree completely, and I feel like I hate saying it because I feel almost like a homer saying it, but I mean, the biggest problem that people had with the Lakers, at least in the beginning of last season, was everybody was saying how we weren't deep. Nobody liked our bench unit at all. Nobody really thought anybody on our bench was anything to worry about. And then here we go, winning a championship with guys who came in and just did what they were asked to do. Mm-hmm. And then to add to that, the sixth man of the year, the runner-up for sixth man of the year, then you have Wesley Matthews, Marc Gasol, who's been a consistent center for years in this league. I mean, it's hard not to pick the Lakers.
Exactly.
So with me I think the Lakers are the obvious choice, so I didn't want to pick them. But in regards to the Lakers, I think they're doing great things. My only thing with them is I've never been sold on Montrezl Harrell. I was happy to get Montrezl Harrell because he's a dog. I'm not saying he isn't, but I would like to see how he fits with the Lakers. I know a lot of people have said he's a better fit with the Lakers than he was with the Clippers, so I would like to see that. But they lost a lot of size, and that's my concern. They have like Harrell, Morris. Those are undersized centers. You still have AD, but he doesn't really like playing center. And Marc Gasol, who I love that signing. That's in regards to being a Laker fan. And Schroeder, I think Schroeder's going to come in and do what he's got to do. Wesley Matthews was a perfect fit for losing Danny Green. Just to insert him in. But what I loved about their offseason, though, was they got younger. The Lakers were one of the oldest teams in the league last season, and they went out and got younger, especially with the short offseason. I think that's only going to benefit the Lakers because now they're a lot younger, so they're a lot more, I wouldn't say a lot more durable, but they can withstand the short rest in the back-to-back games. That's going to happen a lot this season. So I think they're very prepared for what's to come. But they're not my winner, so I'll let Denzel go first before I say my winner.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say that I'll start off with my loser, I guess. My loser of the offseason has got to be the Orlando Magic. I feel like they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing.
That's funny you say that.
We signed Dwayne Bacon. Come on, bro.
But that'll sell some jerseys just because people want to have that on their back.
He's got to be in the kitchen cooking some breakfast for you guys when you guys hit up training camp.
I mean, the only thing I will give them a nod on is Cole Anthony. I think he's a sleeper pick in the draft. I think he could be amazing. But as far as off-season signings and whatnot, we did virtually nothing. We let DJ Augustine walk. Again, I'm fine with because we got Cole Anthony, but yeah, I'm not really confident in what we're doing there. They're trying to run it back, and that seems to me like we're just going to be another 8th seed team. Yeah, sure, we'll make the playoffs, whatever, that's cool, but it doesn't excite me as a Magic fan, and it doesn't really give me a lot of confidence in the future. But whatever. So moving on to my winner, a bit of an unconventional pick, I would say, because I do think the Lakers are a relatively easy pick to say. I mean, they're definitely reloaded, and it seems like they're probably going to make the finals again. But I would have to say the Oklahoma City Thunder, I think the moves that they made in the offseason are really, really interesting. They pretty much offloaded. They made, 11 trades? I think that's like an NBA record, right? 11 different trades. It seems like they're setting themselves up to kind of let Shai Gilgeous-Alexander be the focal point of the team. And I like the way that they're building for the future. So
you actually made my job easier. in terms of picking my winner. But so Cole Anthony, I love the pick. He was arguably going to be the number one pick in the draft prior to his year in college, but it was injuries that hindered him and ultimately dropped his draft stock. But I love the pick, and the reason why I love the pick in terms of the fit too is he ultimately your guys' insurance for Markel Fultz as well. I think they'll work well together, and I think they'll be both be successful, especially in Orlando. But I just think he's just in case work out, you still have Cole Anthony, who I think's a stud. Now as for OKC, they have 22 picks in I think the next 6 drafts. Hold on, let me make sure I got this correct. Just let me make sure. So in the next 5 seasons they have 22 picks. So I think they're set up perfectly for what they want. Like they're clearly rebuilding, but with all those picks, you can trade for a star player. You can just bet on yourself and your ability to develop talent and go out and use all of those 22 picks. So my only issue with their offseason, I would have kept Kelly Oubre. I felt like him and Shai would have been a perfect mix.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were happy because, they would have had the most fashionable team in the NBA. Fuck the fashion. In terms of potential and talent, I think they would have been a nice 1-2 duo for the future, especially with getting Al Horford. I think actually Al Horford is going to rebound this season. So
he's going to have no choice.
And the reason why I say he's going to rebound, he's a traditional 5 in this league at the moment. Like not traditional. He's a modern day 5.
Yeah.
Like he played well when he was playing the 5, and he used to play the 4 in Atlanta, and that's what was his original position back in the day. But it didn't work next to Embiid at all. He's not a 4. He's too slow in this day and age as a 4. But as a 5, he's going to bring that leadership to the locker room. He's going to stretch the floor for them. He still can play defense. When Embiid wasn't playing and he was playing the 5 for Philly, he played well. So I think he's going to rebound, and just having what could have been Shai and Kelly Oubre would have been perfect. But I think even without Oubre, they're set up for success with the amount of picks that they have, and they've honestly left every door open for what they could possibly do down the road.
Absolutely.
But my winner for the offseason, outside of the Lakers, because that's the obvious choice, and OKC, because that was one of my options too, I had to say Atlanta. Atlanta went out. My second pick. Atlanta went out and did what they had to do to surround Trae Young with talent, and they got Bojan, who the Bucks unfortunately couldn't get that. They fumbled the bag.
They folded.
Bucks are actually one of the biggest losers of the offseason too, just because of that. Even though they got Drew Holiday, who I think was an upgrade above Eric Bledsoe, I don't think they jumped over the hump in order to win a championship. But I think he would have been. Bogdanovich would have been.
Don't spoil my biggest loser here.
Oh, my bad. So, anyways, I'll go into mine. So, the Hawks, they went out and got Bogdanovich. They went out and got Gallinari to bring shooting to that team. But the one pick that I think is going to make the biggest difference on that team is Rajon Rondo. They went out and got Rajon, who's bringing defense to that team. He's bringing leadership to that team. He's a mentor for Trae Young, and I think that's what's going to play the biggest factor. And they went out and also got Chris Dunn. He's a CT native, so he didn't really work out in Chicago like a lot of people hoped, or Minnesota for his short tenure there. But I think defensively, he's going to bring what the Hawks desperately needed. And, hey, offensively, he might even get better. But the thing is, now you got to think about it. They have so much depth. They have Chris Dunn, Rondo, and Trae Young at point. You got John Collins and Gallinari at power forward. You have Capella.
You got the rookie too at power forward.
Yeah, I forget his name, but he played with. He played with LaMelo. Who I think he's going to be really well. But Clint Capella, we haven't seen him in this offense or on the team, so I think he's going to make a big impact. Then you still got Cam Reddish, who's still developing, and you still have Hunter, DeAndre Hunter, and
Kevin Herter.
Who's their
Kevin Herter.
the shooting guard.
Yep.
Where they're just gonna be shooting at the gym. It's ridiculous. Like everyone on that team is a threat in terms of shooting. And being in the East, I think they're gonna make a push for a playoff spot. And sorry, Magic, but I think they're taking your spot in the playoffs.
Oh, whoa. Sad.
I'm just gonna go out and say that because, listen, there's teams that are getting better and you guys are not getting better. And in order for a new team to make it to the playoffs, I gotta exit. I gotta kick someone out. And I think with the Wizards getting better and the Hawks getting better, I'm pretty sure I'm missing other teams as well in the East that have gotten better. But the Magic are on their way out of the playoffs. I'm sorry to tell you.
So you think? I mean, I think the Pistons are getting worse. If anything, I think that
they're getting the first pick in the draft.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like if anything, it'd just be the Pistons end up taking that spot, or I'm sorry, the Hawks end up taking the spot the Pistons took. I think they'll do better than us. I don't think they're knocking us out of the playoffs, though. I think we'll still be 8.
No, so I think that they still have the play-in for this season. So I think you guys will be in the play-in for a opportunity. But I do not think you'll be in the final 8 come final cut. Because the Wizards, I think, are making it.
Okay.
I think the Wizards snaking there.
Yeah, I think the Wizards are the 8th seed. I think the Hawks finish better than the Wizards.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I
got the Hawks as my 6th seed.
Ooh.
I feel like honestly, I feel like Trae Young is just that good to where he can. I think they'll get a good amount. I think they'll beat a lot of teams in a lot of close games. I feel like they have enough shooters to pull out of those close games. They can shoot back and forth with whoever they're gonna have to shoot back and forth with. They have not the greatest defensive team, but they have some defenders on this team. They have and they're deep essentially. Like they're essentially deep. I just don't see the only thing that'll hold them back. I feel like would be just the inexperience. Like it's a very young team. They're a very, very young team. But if everything goes right, if everything goes right, I can see them getting snagging a 6th seed.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. Yeah, looking at the top of that conference,
because the Nets are just gonna move on up
if people stay healthy.
Yeah, and also too, sleeper team, Charlotte Hornets. I'm not saying. I'm saying. But after seeing it, I won't talk anymore. But I think they'll be in the conversation for playing for opportunity. But
I think they're a year away. They're a year away from that.
I think they'll play in.
Jovan, go ahead with your loser, even though I kind of spoiled it.
I was messing, but I mean, I feel like Milwaukee's the biggest loser, and it's almost more long term for me than it is short term. I mean, they added Drew Holiday and DJ Augustine, Nick Stauskas, guys of that caliber or whatever. But so it feels to me like they got more consistent. They got a better level of consistency, but I ultimately don't think they got the level of talent that's going to allow them to compete deeper in the playoffs in the East with the likes of the Celtics, the Nets, who now are going to have KD and Kyrie, the Miami Heat. And so I really just feel like they didn't do enough to secure Giannis re-signing. And I feel like that was the biggest thing for them is we need to get somebody enticing enough that's going to make Giannis want to re-sign with us, and I just don't think that they did that. And so, I honestly think after he's a free agent after this year or even during the season, they might trade him away. I feel like they're the biggest loser because they did nothing to secure Giannis for their future, and he's clearly their best player. He's one of the best players, if not the best player in the league. So I had to give him the biggest loser for that.
Yeah. But before we end it, just go around, I guess the room and just quickly name your favorite move of the offseason, whether it's, draft, trade, or even free agency acquisition, I guess I'll start. Chris Paul to the Suns.
That's literally mine.
I love the move, so it's kind of hard to avoid it, and yeah.
Damn.
Facts.
All right, I'm gonna go next, so nobody else takes mine. I think I'm gonna go with Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder to the Lakers.
Mine was also Chris Paul, but I'm gonna go with Josh Richardson to the Mavericks. I think that's gonna help that Mavericks team a whole lot. Another shooter, another scorer, another really, really good defender over there who can play 30, 35 minutes a game with Luka, and whenever Kristaps gets back, I feel like that's really gonna help that team a lot.
Nice.
I'm gonna just stick with the Lakers. I'm gonna go Montrezl Harrell based off the fact that I feel like we got a center who's more versatile, who's able to play against guys like Bam Adebayo, who had the quickness in Miami. So when they're playing small ball, we have a guy who can guard inside the paint as well as has the speed to move in the perimeter. I love Montrezl Harrell pickup. Getting the 6th man of the year. I was gonna say Schroeder, but obviously that was Danzel's pick. I really can't go wrong with either of those guys for my favorite pickup, especially because it's my favorite team. So just having a guy like that added gets me more excited to watch.
So
I also like Golden State getting Kelly Oubre too. I think that was smart. I think that was a very smart move for
Klay
them.
Thompson.
Yeah. Yep.
But for me though, as much as a Laker fan, although I'm happy that we got Harrell because we made the Clippers worse in making the move, I would have liked to see him in Charlotte. He turned down more money in Charlotte to go to the Lakers, but I think him going to Charlotte to play with LaMelo especially after a lot of people got put on notice from this preseason game with all his passing ability, that would have looked scary.
He was on the contender. He was trying to stay with the contender.
Facts.
But I guess we'll take a small break. And during the break, you'll hear some of Harvey's music and some gaming clips from our guys over at the Expansion Pack podcast. So go tune in to their podcast. They drop an episode every Tuesday, so go check that out. And we'll talk further at the very end. And Harvey, he already said it. You'll check him out on SoundCloud, and starting 2021, he'll be everywhere. So stay tuned and stay with us.
The boy patience is getting thinner than big raises. Since 9-6, been accustomed to hooligan behavior. Can call your Lord and Savior, he ain't even trying to save you. And call his phone in some years, asking for big favors. The reason why a lot of niggas die, whether it be hunger or you trying to test me in the guise. Never been a fan of school, you can miss me with the problems, but I still graduated, so I obviously solve them 2-piece in a biscuit. I risk it if I got her. Principles what life's about, I knock you out about $1. Might as well refer to me as MVP of all the rhymers. Talking body after body, John Gracie, Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm a fucking amazing, a monster to say the least, too profitable. So I feel responsible to achieve everything that I once believed ×3, cause I overdo it. My music is more than music, it's how I'm surviving through it, nigga. Dom. Never been a fool, bitch, lately been on my time. Miss me with the bullshit, it's a cold world. Be careful who you cool with, claiming them your slimes till they slime you, typical shit.
And we're back with our second half of our NBA special for Balls Deep. We're going to kick our second segment off with who we think is going to have the breakout season in the NBA, who we choose as our player to have a breakout season in the NBA for next season. So, Harvey, you want to start?
Yeah, I think Jaylen Brown is primed to have an incredible season for the simple fact that Gordon's gone. So a lot of the offensive and defensive responsibility is going to lean on him way more than it. I mean, Gordon was hurt a lot anyways, so it was like it was already on him. But we've seen when Gordon's not playing and Jason and Jalen are running that team, Jalen he can give you 25 and like 8 a night for sure, and he's going to guard one of your best players on the other side of the court. And then you have Kimball, who's starting the year off slow with the knee injury. You have Tristan Thompson, who's not going to be there right away. So Jalen and Jason are going to have to pick up a lot of the responsibility. Jason's already a notch away from being a superstar. We already know what Jason's about. Jalen now is going to be Jalen, who's going to be right beside him. I feel like he's going to start the year off really strong. He's going to every year since he's been drafted, he shoots better and better. He scores better and better. He's getting better and better by the year. So now with coming into this year with with Gordon gone, I feel like he's going to have the opportunity to be able to definitely show exactly what he's about, definitely show his worth, definitely do what he has to do to be able to bring this team to another level. Yes. So I'm going Jalen. I think Jalen's going to have the breakout season.
Do you think question thing is do you think he's gonna have an all-star season? So you think he gets named the all-star this season?
I think he'll have an all-star season, but he won't get named an all-star because of popularity vote.
So he'll be a snub. Gotcha.
Yeah, he'll be. Yeah.
And I mean, to speak to that, I mean, during the break, you guys were talking a little bit about the top five second options on teams. I feel like he has
shooting guards. We're doing shooting guards.
Okay. Well, I feel like either way, Jaylen Brown has the potential to be a top five, second option on a stacked Celtics team, honestly. So, I mean, I like that pick.
Word. I'm surprised you didn't pick certain someone. I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna go a different route. I actually think DeAndre Ayton is primed for a breakout season. I think Chris Paul being on that team is going to do wonders for that man's career. I'm like hearkening back to the days of the Clippers and when he had DeAndre. Oh my God, Jordan. Yeah.
How you forget Jordan?
I don't know. DeAndre's just messing with me. But yeah, I can see Ayton having a lot of fun in the pick and roll. Bringing back Lob City. Tucking him a bunch of balls up in the air, having him knock them down. So we'll see how that goes.
I really like that pick, and the reason why is he was actually one of the options for me. He wasn't my selection, but I think Ayton's gonna actually have a really good season as long as he's healthy. Mainly because of the pick and roll. I think he's gonna thrive in it. I think he's better than DeAndre Jordan. In terms of talent, because offensively, he's got a lot more to his repertoire than DeAndre Jordan. So I think he's gonna be able to pick and pop. He's gonna be able to drive to the paint. My thing is, does he make the jump defensively? Because Phoenix has struggled defensively in years past. We know they went out and got defensive pieces. So does he make that jump? Does he make that leap? But I think offensively, he's going to have a big season, especially now that he's not the number 2 option. He's the number 3. And even Booker. I think Booker's going to make that jump too because of Chris Paul. I think he's going to make that difference. And that's why at the end of last segment, I said Chris Paul is my favorite signing or favorite, acquisition of the offseason.
I think Chris Paul will push Ayton defensively too, though, right? Like we talked about, how Chris Paul is a dog, when he was on Houston and whatnot. Like he has that dog mentality. It's gonna rub off on these younger guys, right? And by virtue, DeAndre Ayton should benefit from that. He should be a better defensive player. And also, we know how Chris Paul can see the floor, right? He can teach these guys how to see the floor. If you can see the floor better, you can understand what an offense is trying to do to you. You can play defense better. So I think Ayton is definitely going to benefit in that way.
Yeah. My most improved player, or not most improved, I'm sorry. My breakout player for next season might come as a surprise, but I'm going to pick Kobe White in Chicago. Prior to the suspension of last season, he was really making huge strides in his game, consistently pouring in like 20, 30-point games. I believe he had a 35-point game even with 5 to 6 rebounds a game and like 5 assists. And without really another, second option behind Zach LaVine, I feel like he's obviously the clear option. He ended up coming into a starting role towards the end there, and I don't expect that to change.
I think he should have been starting from the beginning of the season.
No, I'm not sure that he was, but
I said I think I thought he should have been.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. I feel like in terms of having a breakout season, we saw what he was capable of. I think if he can do it at a level that not just putting up the high numbers, but doing it in a way where it's efficient, I think he'll be able to have a great breakout year.
So for me, this gentleman was already mentioned this episode, thanks to Harvey. But Josh Richardson, I think, is going to have that breakout season. I love the acquisition as well, just as Harvey mentioned. I think Rick Carlisle is going to help him reach his potential, because he has, a lot of untapped potential. We've seen it. A lot of people noticed it in Miami. A lot of people thought he was going to make that jump in Philly. Unfortunately, he didn't. I think this is the opportunity to do so with him playing next to, a Luka Doncic and feeding off of that. And Porzingis when he's back, him being, that third option. And he doesn't even have to be the third scoring option because they have Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. So, defensively, he's going to, do what he does best and obviously make that jump, because now he's going to be guarding the opposing point guards on the other team, because Doncic defensively is a liability. So he's going to help unload that responsibility on Luka. But then offensively, he's just going to feed off of Luka and Hardaway and Porzingis. His shooting ability, I think he's going to be a lot more. He's going to be a more efficient shooter this season. But I think he's going to make that jump to even be in the running for most improved player. He was an option for me for that, but he isn't my selection, which is why, voila, he makes it here on the breakout season. I think Josh Richardson's going to make that jump that everyone, has seen coming, but he just hasn't, done it.
Yeah. But with that being said, we're going to move on to the next topic. And so obviously last year, Lakers won the championship. Now coming into a new season, who do you see as a team that is the biggest threat to dethrone the Los Angeles Lakers as the NBA champions?
Biggest threat.
I don't know, man.
It's a threat.
I'll say, this is kind of an easy pick in a way, but I would have to say the Warriors. I think you got Steph back, even though they don't necessarily have Clay. The addition of Kelly Oubre makes a big difference. Having Weissman on there, if he can be like a third splash brother, that could be something special. So, I think the team that's set up for the most success right now is a team that's already been there, has already done it, and still has their leaders intact. So yeah, gonna have to go with the Warriors.
I'm a biggest threat. I'm gonna have to say the Nets. If KD and Kyrie are exactly what we know they can be, if KD goes out there, and because KD's not scared of Bron, he's the best scorer on the planet when he's healthy. Kyrie's one of the best scorers on the planet when he's healthy. One of the best at the rim. He's insane. Can't guard him. He can shoot from anywhere on the court. So if those two guys can really mesh, I don't see how they can bump heads really at this point. But if they can definitely go out there and put up their 32 and 29 a night, you got Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan doing what they got to do down there. I really like Karis LeVert. I really like Joe Harris. They have a solid team. I don't think it's necessarily enough, but if I had to choose someone to be a threat to the Lakers, it would be the Nets. Just off the aspect of KD and Kyrie being able to match that scoring.
So in terms of bumping heads, I think they'll be fine. If you tuned into Kyrie's IG Live,
I was watching that.
KD jumped up on there, and they seem to have a lot of chemistry off the court. So I'm just expecting it to transition. They both seem to be selfless players when on the court anyway. As you can see, KD took he was still the best player and was the star player of his team, but he took a smaller role when going to Golden State, and sharing the limelight with Steph Curry. But with Kyrie, I think they have similar personalities. They have similar. They're both very flashy when on the court. So granted, if they're healthy, I think they'll be the biggest threat. I know me and Jovan answered this question before. We both said the Warriors, but this was prior to Klay Thompson's injury, unfortunately. So I'm gonna go with the Nets again. I think, barring any health issues, they'll be fine. And they also got deeper as a squad too. they not only have Joe Harris back, but they added Landry Shamet from the Clippers.
Yeah.
Who I think is going to be very
Facts.
underrated in that secondary group. But having Spencer Dinwiddie still there, is still scary
Yeah, they're deep.
because him and Kyrie have a similar game, and for him to come off the bench and control that second unit is going to be good. But I honestly think they're a better squad if Jarrett Allen starts. I think he brings more to that floor spacing, that offense with KD and Kyrie both on the court. I think DeAndre Jordan is good defense. He's a good defensive presence, but I think he'll be better on the second unit in terms of his veteran presence. Because then you would have Dinwiddie, Shamet. I forget who their power forward is, but hey, they have a deep squad on paper. So
Yeah,
it's
they
just a
do.
matter if they can mesh.
Definitely.
And I think Steve Nash, one of the greatest minds in the NBA to ever play the game.
I think he can put it together. Yeah,
I think he's going to put it together similar to how Steve Kerr was able to put it together in Golden State. Obviously, when Steve Kerr took over, it was a younger team, not really star-studded. But then you also have Mike D'Antoni's offense. You got to think about it. He's the offensive coordinator, you can say, in Brooklyn. So, and he's always had a top offense in the league every time he's coached in the league. So, ball dominant. He usually has one ball dominant player in his offense. If Kyrie's healthy, he's one of the best ball dominant people to have in his hands. He has arguably one of the best handlers to ever play. And then KD. KD's fucking basically a 7-foot point guard. He can do everything. He can bring up the ball. And with him not being as explosive, let's say, this is all assumption, just due to his injury, he might be better as a facilitator too.
Yeah. Now, really on this, I'm going to just have to echo what Harvey and Devin said because I completely agree. I mean, KD is, in my opinion, not just the best scorer, but the best player in the league when he is healthy. And it almost feels like people are trying to speak into existence, like him and Kyrie not getting along, when we really haven't seen any evidence that that's the case. I feel like it's more so people just kind of wanting it to be that way because, I mean, we know how Kyrie's personality is. He rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I really don't understand why, but I just feel like it's more so people being hopeful in a way that Brooklyn isn't as good as they look. But in my opinion, I think they are that good, and I think healthy they will be.
But I think they do that more in spite, just because the history that Kyrie has with what went down in Boston. But even though I don't think he wanted to be there to begin with, and just the history with KD making that option to go to Golden State, even though everyone says it was a punk move, I think it was a smart move on his opinion, just because he was a better fit in Golden State's offense than he was in OKC. So if you take away the roster situation and that they were the best regular season team in history, they still lost the championship regardless. But my thing is, doesn't matter what caliber team you are, if you have the cap space to go out and sign a player like Kevin Durant, why wouldn't you go do it? They realized an issue with their team, they made an upgrade, and they won championships for him, whether people like it or not. But I think in terms of Kyrie and KD, they haven't had the best history in the league. But I think they're perfect for each other in terms of being on a team. I just hope that they don't trade for Harden, not because I think they'll be a bigger threat, but I just think it'll mess up the chemistry between the two. I think they're better off as KD, Kyrie than having Harden there too, because now with D'Antoni there, Harden's going to have the ball in his hand most likely, since he knows the offense. And that's going to, leave Kyrie more in the corner. And Kyrie's the reason why it all started in Brooklyn and how it all came together. So as a Kyrie fan, I just hope he's able to, rebound, you can say.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say the Nets was a team that I was considering. I don't know. I don't know where that's going to go just yet. I actually... The conversation around the chemistry thing, that was like so far away from my mind that I didn't even really think about it until you guys just brought it up. I think Kyrie and KD are going to get along just fine. Yeah. I think there's a lot to do about nothing in regards to Kyrie and his personality and how he's run people the wrong way and yada yada yada. Like, I even back to being on the Celtics and hearing the way that the Celtics players have talked about him after he already left. And Harvey, you can attest to this. Like, I haven't heard any ill will. I haven't heard any negativity. I mean, it's pretty easy to just throw him in under the bus after he left. And, you know, people are out here. What was that? I think Marcus Smart was saying, like, you guys want to talk about Kyrie all you want, but we had a lot of issues in the locker room. And that was an easy opportunity to sit there and say, yeah, I mean, we're glad he's gone. And he didn't. So I actually think that, the whole conversation around Kyrie being a problem is pretty silly. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it's just the media's. I think it's really just the media's way of trying to make him out to be a villain. It's really what they do with a lot of these star players. I mean, honestly, in my opinion, the only thing I've ever had a problem with Kyrie saying was when he's, went out of his way to say that he's never had a clutch player that's able to, take a shot late in games other than KD. That was literally the only thing I've ever had a problem with anything Kyrie said. But I feel like it's just what the media does.
Even that was a boneheaded statement. Like, I don't think he meant anything by it.
Misconstrued.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he meant it in that aspect. I just felt like, so Kyrie's always been the alpha male. I want to take the last shot. He's basically saying, KD's probably the first player that he doesn't mind taking the back seat to for that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, LeBron is LeBron. I'm not saying anything, but I'd still rather Kyrie have the ball in his hands, one shot to win the game than LeBron. And
100%.
Right.
LeBron might be his greatest teammate ever, and I'm pretty sure their relationship's fine. But I think the media is misconstruing that his words, like they always do, which is why he came out in the beginning of the season and said he's not speaking to the media. And I don't blame him for it, but I think he needs to go a similar route to LeBron and how LeBron made his own media company, and when he wants to say something, and he feels like his words might get misconstrued, he goes to that platform and releases it, so that basically it comes out. He controls the narrative.
Well, y'all saw what he did this week, right? Like he didn't even speak to the media. He just released the statement. Like
and he still got fined for it because the NBA didn't accept it.
Yeah. Jovan, you were about to say something though.
It threw me off a little when Devin said that he's LeBron's best teammate ever. I'm hoping that he meant prior.
No.
I said LeBron is Kyrie's.
Okay. AD,
calm down, my guy. Calm down. Hold your horses.
Hold your horses.
Wait. In terms of Kyrie being in the rankings of LeBron's teammates, he's top 3.
Oh, yeah.
And I put him over Wade. And the reason why I put him over Wade is because when LeBron joined Wade was, getting up there in age. But also Wade, I think, made a big impact on LeBron's career outside of just, playing together. He taught him how to win. He taught him a winning culture. He taught him how to be, the LeBron we know today, in a sense. So I think but AD I put as number 1. I think in terms of talent, he's the best player he's ever played with. But Kyrie, I'd say he doesn't get enough credit for that Cleveland championship. A lot of people say LeBron carried them to a championship. But think about it. They lost the championship without Kyrie. And then Kyrie comes back, and they're both averaging like 30 in the finals. So if it wasn't for LeBron almost leading his team in pretty much every category in that finals, Kyrie would have won MVP, and it wouldn't have been close. But it was similar to that Shaq-Kobe narrative. A lot of people say Shaq carried the Lakers to a championship as if Kobe didn't do anything. And Kobe was right there, fucking LeBron. And Shaq says it all the time. He was there in clutch moments when he got ejected out of the game or fouled out. Who won them that game or who kept the team together? It was Kobe, similar to Kyrie. He had a similar role in that aspect, and I think he doesn't get enough credit. And I think a lot of people are going to get put on notice this season when both KD and Kyrie are out for vengeance. They both have something to prove.
Yeah.
So I guess that leads us to our next topic. So basically, this past season, both the Lakers and the Heat made the finals, and prior to the season prior, they weren't even a playoff team. So a lot of people didn't even predict both of them to be in the finals. So our question to you guys is, which non-playoff team from last season has the best chance to make the playoffs and ultimately compete for a championship? Like, who's this season's Lakers and Heat.
The Hawks and the Suns.
Yeah.
Hawks and the Suns. Like, I feel like there's no other teams who didn't make the playoffs last season put in as. I mean, the Suns didn't even make a bunch of trades. They just made key trades and they made key moves. The Hawks, they made key trades and key moves. They did what they had to do to ensure they're making those teams. There's no doubt about them making the playoffs next year. Even the Suns are even with the Suns being in the West. I feel like Chris Paul's addition. He's that impactful of a player. Like take last year, for example. A lot of people wrote the Thunder off before the season even started. Oh, they're just tanking. They're tanking this year. Chris Paul's going to be gone before the end of the year.
One of them.
Yeah, see? They wrote him off, but Chris Paul, last year, he proved that he's a winner. He's real impactful. He wants to help everyone around him get better. So I feel like the Suns are definitely going to get in there, 7th, 8th seed. The Hawks.
I think even higher.
Think even higher?
Yeah, I'm thinking more like either 4 through 6.
4 through 6. Okay.
I was gonna give him 5, and because in my opinion, I feel like CP not to slight any of the guys on the Thunder. I think they all were clearly led by Chris Paul, and they went out there and they did what they had to do. But I feel like he got that 5th seed with less over there than what he has now.
That is true.
Phoenix,
Right.
You know what I mean?
That is true.
Over there in OKC, there was not one player on Devin Booker's caliber.
Not at all.
Not a single one. That is a fact.
So just keeping them. So in agreement with you, I would say the Suns would be my Lakers or Heat team this season, just because of the difference that they made. Not even just Chris Paul. I think Chris Paul obviously is the known factor, but I think a sleeper pickup was Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder, we seen the difference that he made when he went to Miami and how he helped them go to the championship. I think he's going to make a difference on that team defensively. Like I mentioned before, they struggled defensively. Will they make that leap? I think Jay Crowder is going to help not only defensively, but he'll stretch the floor. He'll do basically the nitty-gritty. He'll do the dirty work to help not only the younger players get accustomed to a winning culture, but he'll basically do what Draymond does for the Golden State Warriors and do the little things that don't necessarily show up on the stat sheet to help them get to where they want to go, I should say.
I like them grabbing Langston Galloway as well. Langston Galloway is going to be a real big help.
I agree.
Yeah, I would have to echo what Harvey said about the Sun. That would be my Western Conference pick. For the East, though, I'd have to go with the Wizards. I think Russell, it's just too obvious at that point. Like he makes so much of a difference. He would make so much of a difference to that team. Even when you look at how the team played when John Wall was there and he was healthy, like they were in the mix for a playoff run. I think you get enough out of Westbrook on a night in and night out basis to get you where you want to go.
The dude's a walking triple double, so
exactly
100%.
And I think one player that's gonna feed off of Westbrook a lot and benefit from his presence is Thomas Bryant. I think he's very underrated. He's a former Laker.
Yeah, that's why you're talking about him.
No, I'm upset because I would still like him to be on the team. But I think he doesn't get enough credit. He's very underrated because he's not really a big name. But just to look at Westbrook when he was in OKC, who fed off of his presence the most? It was Steven Adams. And Steven Adams, there's really no Steven Adams on the Wizards, but their starting center is Thomas Bryant. And with Scott Brooks being there, pick and roll situations, Thomas Bryant, he can shoot some mid ranges. So I think the pick and roll game and just his presence there alone is gonna benefit Thomas Bryant. So I think he's gonna have not a breakout season, but he'll make a leap from last season to this season.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree. I see him being like a solid 15-9, 15-8 guy a night for sure.
But with that being said, I believe now we are going to move into our seasonal award predictions for most valuable player, defensive player of the year, rookie of the year, sixth man of the year, most improved player, coach of the year, and executive of the year.
So we can start off with just like coach and executive of the year, just kind of get those out of the way because I'm pretty sure we don't really have to talk much about it.
Yeah.
But I guess I'll start off with the executive of the year. Rob Pelinka. Rob Pelinka, we agree, won the offseason. He should have won. He should have won it last season, but people were hating on the Lakers and gave it to the Clippers executives. Go fuck yourself. But I think he had something to prove. He, like LeBron said after they won the championship, Rob wants his respect, and I think he went out there this offseason and he pretty much snatched that shit like Debo did with that chain in Friday. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Debo.
So he basically snatched his respect, and I think he's gonna win it. And then as for coach of the year, I'm gonna go with Rick Carlisle. I think they have a young squad in Dallas. I think he's a very underrated coach in terms of development as well. He's been there for a while for a reason, and I think they'll be a playoff team. And with the leap of Josh Richardson, like I mentioned before, in the breakout season, I think he'll win coach of the year.
Yeah. So for executive of the year, I feel as though Devin wanted to add this in just for us Lakers fan to be a little bit more obnoxious, but it has to be. It's very clearly Rob Pelinka. Simply because I feel like we've never seen a championship squad get that much better in one offseason other than probably the Warriors. And so really just for that reason alone, I think it's going to be Rob Pelinka.
Yeah, who do you have for coach?
Oh, for coach of the year, who I think should win it won't be eligible because they're not a coach. I think it should be Chris Paul because I think he will make, we all know how good of an encore coach Chris Paul is. But with that being said, I do think it's going to be Monty Williams.
Yes, I love that pick.
I think it's going to be Monty Williams because, the Suns were really trying to make a push for the playoffs last year in the bubble. It seemed like a lot of the players were, buying into what he had to say. And even after going 8-0 and just missing the playoffs, he still rallied them and said, let's build on this next season. And it really seems like the Suns are buying into that. I mean, just based alone off what they were able to do in the bubble and that mentality they seem to have now, it seems like they're trying to finally turn this around and, okay, let's turn all these picks, all these like bad years into let's finally start winning basketball games. And I think with the addition of Chris Paul and just the players ultimately believing in what Monty Williams is preaching, I think they'll make the playoffs. We were talking, 4 to 6 maybe. I could see them as highest as a 4 seed. I think they, like I said, possibly make a 5 seed. I think it's going to be Monty Williams.
Okay. So I'll go next on this one. I think my executive of the year, I think it's pretty clearly Rob Pelinka, but I'm going to go a different route because I hate you Lakers people. I'm gonna pick Sam Presti from the Thunder. I think, as we talked about before, I think the moves that he made in this offseason really set them up to go anywhere that they want to go. It sets up for them to have a really bright future around Shaker Gilgeous-Alexander, and I'm excited to see what they do with all the pieces that they've acquired, from as far as draft picks go. My coach of the year, I'm gonna have to go with Brad Stevens. I think the Celtics end up with the best record in the East. I think the fact that they were able to kind of shed Gordon Hayward allows for Stevens to be a little bit more nimble with the things that he wants to do in his offense. I think when they had Hayward, it seemed like because of their history, because of Brad Stevens' history with Hayward in the past, it seemed like they really wanted to try to incorporate him into the offense, and he kept trying to force something that wasn't exactly working.
Force feeding him.
Yeah. So I think shedding that, and
that's why Celtics fans don't like him.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think Tatum taking the next step, getting pieces like Tristan Thompson. I'm actually a lot more high on Tristan Thompson than I think the rest of you guys are. I think he can make a big difference for the team if he stays healthy. But yeah,
from them Kardashians.
I mean, we know he ain't gonna do that. So in
Hey,
spite of that, I think he's
Hey,
good.
Celtics might go out and grab Kevin Love or Billy Griffin, like I mentioned before, because Tristan Thompson might not
Yeah,
be it.
It's true. That would definitely
let's
put them
hope
over the
for it.
edge. Yeah, I still think they end up with the best record in the East, even with the roster that they have now. If Danny Ainge goes out there and makes some moves, I think it could be even more scary. But we'll see.
My executive, Rob Pelinka. I don't even got to explain it. Everyone already said everything I already got to say about it. My coach of the year was what happened?
I said definitely ain't Danny Ainge.
Definitely not Danny Ainge. That man is a nut. He folded. My coach of the year was Rick Carlisle, but just to like branch off, I'm gonna keep on pushing this Hawks thing. I'm gonna go Lloyd Pierce. Like he could be coach of the year for the drastic, just because of how drastically I feel like that team will change. Last year they won I don't think they won 20 games last year. This year I got them winning over 50 games. So I feel like they'll definitely make a big change. It'll be a big leap. I think we'll see Trae Young get better. Because we'll see Rondo rub off on him. Rondo showing him exactly how what he had to deal with when it comes to certain play styles and certain defenses and being a point guard in itself. But like Rondo's gonna definitely help him out in that aspect. I feel like John Collins and Clint Capella, they'll definitely. I feel like down there in that front court, I feel like they'll be one of the more dominant front court combinations in this league. I don't want to say they'll be the best. I don't want to say they'll be top 2 or 3, but I think they'll definitely make some noise where everyone will be definitely like, when you go into Atlanta to play, it's not going to be no easy. You're going, like for players like Giannis, who's a head down player who has to get into the paint, he'll have trouble playing. I feel like he'll have trouble playing teams like the Hawks because it's not going to be the easiest thing to deal with. He's not going to be able to just run right through that defense and go right there in the paint because Clint Capella's with all of that. John Collins is with all of that. I like what were we saying? What's his name? Onyeka. I think he's going to be a really good player. He's very good defensively. He was very good defensively for USC. He's very versatile. So I think Lloyd Pierce is going to turn that team all the way around. They're going to show exactly what they can be, some glimpses of the future, and he'll run away with that trophy.
To be honest, I think John Collins comes off the bench. And I think Gallinari ends up starting because John Collins, although I think he's a starter in this league, he played last season. He played better at the 5 than he did the 4. With Capella being in that lineup now for sure, he's not playing the 5. So, I think Gallinari will be a better fit next to Capella. But Collins, I think, could be a candidate for 6th man of the year if he comes off the bench.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I kind of.
So, I guess we'll shift over to our next awards. I guess we'll take it to 2 more at a time. I guess. So we'll go with most improved player, and 6th man of the year, and we'll top it off with the final 3. So who do you guys have for most improved player of the year, and then followed up by 6th man of the year?
Most improved player, I got to go Michael Porter Jr. I feel like Michael Porter Jr. with Jeremy Grant gone, he'll definitely see that minutes increase. He showed a lot in the bubble. He showed a lot of what he can be. He's a really good shooter. He can score. His defense could be a little better, but I'm pretty sure that's something they've worked on. Probably something they're discussing and things like that. So I think he'll definitely make a big. He's been riddled with injuries. So I think this year he'll have a fairly healthy year. I don't expect him to play every single game, but he'll definitely play more games than he usually plays. I say he averages around 18 points consistently on like 48% shooting. So I think he'll be really good, especially on that Nuggets team. That's a winning team. They'll win a lot of games. I think he'll close out a lot of games. They have Jamal Murray, Jokic, Gary Harris. They have guys over there who can close games, but I think he will be closing a few of those games out, whether it be by design or the ball just ending up in his hands. Because we even seen in the bubble, he's a killer. He wants to go out there and get his. So I think he'll definitely get that. Exactly. He wants the ball. He's saying, I want the ball when it matters. So, and then he called him out next game. He did exactly what was requested of him. So, you said 6th man too, right?
Correct.
Initially I had Dennis Schroeder just as a safe pick. Lakers have 2 of the best 6 men there possibly is to get. But now that you've informed me that John Collins probably will be coming off the bench, I got John Collins as my sixth man of the year. I think he'll nearly average a double-double off the bench. I think he'll be a very good defensive presence coming off the bench. Not everyone's teams are too deep. Not everyone's, benches have that much big man depth. So he'll be one of the few big men coming off the bench that can actually make an impact in this league. So I think he can definitely get that sixth man of the year. But Shooter was definitely my initial pick.
So I just want to, I don't know for sure if he's coming off the bench. I just think he will come off the bench because of I think he plays better at the 5 statistically than he does at the 4.
Yeah, that's why initially I'm gonna go Shooter. I think Shooter will win sixth man of the year, but if John Collins does end up coming off the bench, that's where I'll go with that.
Got you. How about you, Denzel?
So as far as most improved, Michael Porter was the one I was thinking of off the top of my head, but I expected Harvey to take it. So I didn't want to make this pick because I didn't necessarily want to be a homer, but we're rocking with a couple of Lakers fans here who have been homers so far. So my pick for most improved player is going to be Markelle Fultz. I think the fact that DJ Augustine isn't on that team anymore, they've kind of given him the keys. He will be the starting guard. Obviously, we have Cole Anthony there, and we've definitely talked, at length about his ability and what he can mean to our team. But I think that they will end up running both of them in sets very often. I think you'll see both of them on the floor pretty consistently. I think. I hope that we eventually get rid of Fournier, and then we just kind of have Cole Anthony rocking at the 2 guard for a while. But also, I think, if anybody got a chance to catch the preseason game yesterday, he's actually reformed his shot. His shot looks a lot better than it's been looking. Obviously last year he was still shooting with some consistency, and he definitely showed flashes, especially in the game against the Lakers. He came to play. I think we might see a little bit more of that next year. So I'm hoping that that's the case.
I think he's just going to improve the more years pass from his injury. Like just because as years go on, he's going to feel better. He's going to, find ways to, adjust, you can say. Because initially, after having that injury, it seemed to be more mental than anything. He's just going to gain more confidence. I think with being in Orlando, you guys are only boosting his confidence even more. So defensively, he's going to be there regardless. Offensively, he can drive to the paint, but it's just that jump shot, like his free throws and stuff like that, which he had in college. Now it's just more you gave him the cars, or the keys to the car. Hopefully, Cole Anthony don't hit him with "Get out of me car." But I think Fultz and Cole Anthony, like you said, will do fine together. So
yeah. I think even if Cole Anthony comes on and has a Rookie of the Year type of season, I still think Fultz will have a pretty significant role on the team. I think if anything, one of them just gets slotted to the 2 guard and then goes from there. But as far as my sixth man of the year, I'm gonna have to go with Spencer Dinwiddie. I think he'd make an interesting pick there. Obviously, we know what's gonna happen with that team. We know how KD and Kyrie, will look as far as scoring goes. But Spencer Dinwiddie coming off the bench, being kind of the head of that second unit, I think he's a monster, right? Like he could go on any other team and start off the rip and be kind of the focal point of that team. But having him on a team with as much depth as the Nets have, I think he's a sneaky play for sixth man of the year.
I guess I'll go. My most improved player, I don't really think he's gonna really, improve, but I'm going with SGA. Gilgeous-Alexander. He's going from being in that 3-man rotation in terms of guard with Schroeder and Chris Paul and himself to just being the star player. So I think he's going to make the leap, similar to what Brandon Ingram did with moving from the Lakers and not being the star player to now being the star player of his team and essentially taking the keys to the car. I think with what the Thunder need and what they have, it's really just him and Horford at the moment. And I think he's going to take over and ultimately do everything that he possibly can to win. I'm not saying they will win, but he's going to do everything that he can to, will them to victory. And with Al Horford being there as his number 2, it's only going to help because pick and rolls, assists, things like that. I think he's going to make that jump that will ultimately win him Most Improved Player of the Year. And as for Sixth Man of the Year, this might be a shocker to some, but I'm going Jordan Clarkson. And I wanted to go with Schroeder, but I don't know if he's starting or coming off the bench. John Collins, like I'm in agreement with Harvey. If he comes off the bench, he's definitely a winner. But Jordan Clarkson, I think we've seen the difference that he was able to make in the bubble for the Jazz, especially with the time that Mike Conley was out because his wife had a baby. He made a big difference in terms of scoring off the bench. I think now that Mike Conley's coming back, he's definitely going to take on that bench role, and he's going to bring that second unit some scoring ability that they desperately need. I mean, Donovan Mitchell in the bubble was screaming for help, and Clarkson seemed to be the only one really helping him. And then you also got Gobert. So I think outside within the Jazz organization, I can't really think of anyone on that second unit. I don't know anyone on that second unit outside of Jordan Clarkson. So I think Jordan Clarkson is going to not necessarily be Lou Williams, but Lou Williams is a scorer, and that's what he has provided for years. So I think that's what Jordan Clarkson is going to do. He's going to provide scoring, and that's typically what wins Sixth Man of the Year.
Yeah. So for my Most Improved Player, I'm gonna have to go with Colin Sexton, in Cleveland. Mostly because Cleveland there's not many options in Cleveland. They basically are handing the reins to Colin Sexton, and he's going to really have a lot of opportunity to improve his game this season. He already improved last season, upping his averages to 20.8 points per game. We already know the tenacity he has and the work ethic he has in general and on the defensive side of the ball. So really, I'm just looking for him to improve on his facilitating abilities and probably his rebounding. He averaged 1 steal a game, so like I said, his defense is there. But if he has the ability to improve on his passing as a point guard, and if he ends up being the primary ball handler on that team, feeding guys like JaVale McGee and Andre Drummond, who's a beast on the boards, and then having a guy like Kevin Love to be able to kick it out to if he's not shipped away, I think he's in a great opportunity to be Most Improved Player, just because there's not really many options over in Cleveland other than him. He's going to really have the entire floor to work if Cleveland, so chooses to, give him the keys to the franchise at this moment.
To be honest, I forgot Drummond was even in Cleveland. that man went MIA.
Yeah. And then so from there, my Sixth Man of the Year, everybody keeps mentioning him. I'm gonna pick him because to me he feels like the obvious choice, and I really just can't pick against it. It's Dennis Schroeder, and this is under the assumption that he's not starting. But obviously he was the runner-up for the award last year, and the person who won it is now currently his teammate. We know that the Lakers like to oftentimes AD and LeBron will start, but eventually they'll split them up and they'll be in different units for large parts of the game. And I think that Schroeder is going to be on the court a lot with LeBron, and with LeBron facilitating the ball to you and you being a great scorer. I think that's gonna really just maximize his potential as a scorer and in general as an all-around player, being around LeBron and just learning everything that LeBron has to teach somebody. So that's my Sixth Man of the Year.
Yeah, he's a dog. He's great off the ball and on the ball. So I think whether he starts or comes off the bench, whatever unit he plays with, he's gonna do well. Because the Lakers needed another ball dominant guard to kind of give LeBron a break. So even with LeBron being on the court, who's to say he doesn't run the offense? And LeBron plays off the ball. So I think even then it'll still benefit him. He's in a better scenario than he was in OKC. So I think that elevates his chances of winning it should he come off the bench.
I mean, not to mention he led the league in bench scoring last year, and that number is probably going to only go up this year. So,
alrighty. So before we get into future predictions, we have our final three for the award predictions: Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP. In that order. Who you got, Jovan? Let's start with you. You finished it off last time. You started off this time.
So all three?
Yep, we got to start Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP. That order.
All right. So Rookie of the Year is going to be LaMelo Ball. I just feel like right now he's in the best position of any rookie, considering, I mean, he's immediately walking in and he's the first option. He's the face of the franchise. I'm not really expecting them to. I mean, as much as they are going to rely on Gordon Hayward to probably be a second option, I don't know that they're going to, I don't know that he's going to be the guy. I think that's going to belong to LaMelo Ball. He's going to be the primary ball handler. So, I mean, we've seen his ability to score. We've seen his ability to facilitate. I just think he's in the best position of any rookie, honestly, to perform because he's just really given the reins to do whatever he wants at this point, considering the team that he's on. So that's why he's my Rookie of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year is AD. He's one of the better bigs in the league due to his ability to like stretch the floor. Being quicker than most guys his size, he's able to not only guard in the paint but in the perimeter. He oftentimes defends guards and does really well. He was runner-up last year, even though a lot of people felt like he should have won it. 7 defensive rebounds a game, 1.5 steals, 2.3 blocks per game. And really, with a guy like AD, you just expect those numbers to continue. And with that being said, for my MVP, might surprise some people, but Steph Curry.
You fucker. I was going to pick him.
So Steph Curry, obviously, the Warriors' season was basically thrown out the window last year due to almost everybody that mattered to them not being able to play. And now this year, with getting almost everybody back, other than Klay Thompson, they're obviously going to be in the playoffs again. They're going to be contending for a championship, and I think that Steph Curry is going to get, a lot of the credit for that. I mean, and as he should. It almost seems like as people are talking about the Warriors, it feels as though they're not taking Steph serious, and they seem to forget that he's a 2-time MVP, and one of those is unanimous. And I think he will come back and remind people why he's one of the best players in the league, why he's probably I say probably, but I think he is the best three-point shooter we've ever seen. He's really changed the game in a way. So I think he's going to come back. He's going to really remind people, the Warriors are good, and I'm one of the biggest reasons why. And so I think that's my MVP for this year.
So I'm going to follow up Jovan just for the simple fact that he stole all 3 of my picks for these awards. So I just guess double down on it. Rookie of the Year, LaMelo Ball. He's my favorite rookie in the draft class. I think I wouldn't say he's in the best situation. I think Wiseman's in the best situation just because he's in a winning culture and he doesn't necessarily have to be the number one option, so he can feed off of everyone else. And I think people are sleeping on his shooting ability. But LaMelo Ball is my pick. The reason why I mentioned, I don't know if it was on camera or in pre-recording, I said the Hornets are a sleeper team to in the East. And they're a sleeper team, to be in that play-in game for opportunity to be in the playoffs. And the main reason why I said that was LaMelo Ball. And a lot of people were put on notice in the preseason game of what he's capable of doing. His passing ability is ridiculous. He'll be top of the league in assists this season, in my opinion. And he's 6'8" at the moment, and he still has room to grow. And he's at point guard. So he's pretty much a 7-foot point guard who can rebound. And that's similar to what his brother Lonzo can do. The only difference is Lonzo's a better defender, so we can see if LaMelo actually is able to play better defense than people are accustomed to him doing. But his scoring ability, people have talked about how his shot is broken like Lonzo, or like coming out. I don't necessarily agree. I think he's more aggressive on offense than Lonzo is, so I think he's in a better situation in terms of his jump shot, and he's able to will himself to the rim, and he's a very flashy player, and that's why I ultimately think he's going to win Rookie of the Year. And then as for my defensive player of the year, AD, I felt like he got robbed, for the award this past season. Yes, Giannis won MVP, but I don't think he should have won both. I think AD should have won, and I think he will win this season. I don't really have to say much about that. Jovan already explained he can guard in the paint or in the perimeter. As for my MVP, I was leaning towards, being a homer, but I'm not going to be a homer. And then I thought about Giannis because with their inefficiency or inability, I should say, to go out and get Bogdanovich means he has to, do more work and ultimately win MVP. But getting a three-peat at MVP is hard. And that's kind of why I was leaning on Stephen Curry, because the Warriors are depleted, not necessarily depleted, but they lost Clay. A lot of people are counting him out. And losing Clay just means he has more responsibility on his plate. And a lot of people forget he's MVP in his own right. He's one of the best scorers this league has ever seen. He's the best shooter this league has ever seen. And that season where he was unanimous MVP, where he's shooting out of the gym, I'm expecting that to happen this season. I don't necessarily think he'll be unanimous MVP, but he'll bring that kind of game this season, and I think he'll come away with the award.
Okay.
I will say, though, although I think LaMelo will win Rookie of the Year, I think the best rookie, my favorite rookie in this draft is Anthony Edwards. But he's in a different situation. Go ahead, Denzel. I apologize.
Oh, no worries. So I'm a little mad at Devin because he kind of took my points about Weissman. That's going to be my Rookie of the Year. I think he's actually in the best position out of all these guys because, like Devin said, he's not the number one option. He's not forced to be the number one option, and he's in a winning culture, in a culture that's known to develop younger talent. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people, which is interesting to say because I think the expectations on him are already pretty high. But I think he'll develop a consistent shot. And that they needed a big man. They needed that center. So he's needed in that regard, but he doesn't have to be the number one option. So I think we'll see a lot of interesting things out of Weissman. As far as defensive player of the year, this one was kind of a tough one, and I didn't want to go with something more traditional like what you guys had picked. So I'm actually going to go with Bam Adebayo. I think him being in the playoffs, him getting a taste of that playoff energy, being in the finals, I think that changes a lot of players. I think you'll see that whole Heat team transform a bit. And I think they're already a hungry team, right? They're already, like we all already talked about, they're a team of dogs. But I think getting a taste of that success and being so close to getting the chip and losing, I think that changes people. I think you'll see a lot more hunger, a lot more aggression out of that team, and specifically out of Bam. I think he was already averaging almost 1.5 blocks per game last season. So, I think we might get a little bit more of that. He's already a great player as it is. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he takes the next step. As far as MVP goes, I'm going to have to go with Luka Doncic. I think he's an interesting pick for MVP for me. He was already.
I like that one.
Yeah, he was already averaging, I think it was like 28, we'll say 30 points per game last year. That team definitely relied on him a lot. I think, yeah, and then they'll definitely continue. I think he was literally averaging 30 points a game in the postseason as well. So, yeah, I think he's going to be my pick. I think
him getting Kristaps Porzingis back only helps his case in that situation because we know that he's able to facilitate. But obviously having a second player like Kristaps and not having to carry so much of the load is going to be really huge for Luka.
And Denzel, about your Wiseman pick, I honestly think people are underestimating his shot. A lot of analysts coming out of the draft compared him to Chris Bosh and David Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two guys who can stretch the floor a bit. And I think with the modern game that it is, big men need to shoot, and I think he realized that. And with him, taking the early exit out of Memphis for the situation that blew up, he was probably able to focus on his game more. And I'm pretty sure he realized, hey, I need a consistent jump shot. So I think we'll see it. And I think with him playing next to Steph,
yes,
and Steph being the threat that he is, no one's going to be paying any attention to him. And with Draymond being Draymond too, Draymond, he doesn't have to be in the paint all the time because Draymond can be down there getting rebounds and things like that too. So the offense is going to be very interesting to see where it goes. I don't think Wiggins ends up staying on the team, which might mean more opportunities for Wiseman. But just the team on paper is very interesting, and I think Wiseman's set up for success. Honestly,
I mean, I feel like people almost forget how good he is just because he was drafted by the Warriors. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. I'll just say this real quick. You can't be near two of the best shooters in the world and not pick up a better jump shot, right? Like Clay may be injured, but I mean he can still teach, right?
Off one leg too.
He can still shoot. He can still teach. He can help. These guys can help him out.
We saw him drop like 40 with like 8 dribbles.
Exactly.
Right.
All right, Harvey. So your last one, and then we'll try to hurry up and wrap this episode up real quick.
It's funny because he just said all three of mine. Yeah, James Wiseman is definitely my rookie of the year. I feel like he's the most NBA ready in this entire draft, and he's instantly in a winning culture. Like you said, my thing, him being paired with Draymond, he's get an entire different mentality instilled into him. Like off the muscle, he's gonna get nothing but dog energy put. Because already in practice, those two guys are together. Those two guys are side by side. Draymond's in his ear, showing exactly how this player plays. How to guard this. Because because Draymond's a small baller, but James Wiseman being a taller but being more of a stretch, they basically have the same. The way they play will have to be the same. So he's going to have to know how to guard the same exact guards that Draymond has to guard. He's going to have to guard the guards, being a stretch. He's going to have to stretch the floor playing with Steph. He can't just be down there. They're going to be all over the place. But him being him taking that, how his situation in Memphis went down and him having all that time off to just work on his game, he'll definitely be I say he's averaging a double-double automatically. I think that's what's going to win him rookie of the year, being able to average 17 and 12. I say he's going to average like 17 and 12. What was next? Defensive player of the year?
Yeah.
Bam is definitely my pick. It was initially AD, but you two picked AD, so I was like, I'm going to pick something different. And then, of course, he goes and picks the guy that I thought was going to be the different pick. So, Bam, just, Celtics fan, that Jason Tatum block hurt me, made me see a lot of things differently. Look at him, a whole lot of
PTSD.
Man, what? And if he's doing stuff like that in big games, like in the Eastern Conference Finals, like I can only imagine what he's like. He's gotten a taste of that already. So now he knows exactly what needs to be done to be able to compete at the highest level with the best players in the world. Being 6'10", 6'9", something like that. So he's definitely going to be out. He's on the perimeter. He's going to be on the perimeter. He's quick. He's versatile. He's not lazy. He hustles. He's an all over the place guy. So I can definitely see him winning Defensive Player of the Year just solely off the fact that he's doing everything. He's playing all over the floor. Yeah. He's all over the place. It's harder to like he not of course him alone. I mean that whole entire team plays defense, but he played I feel like the biggest he was the biggest factor in that team being as good as they were defensively. I feel like, and then Luka is Luka. That man's about to average 30. I think he's about to have a 50, 40, 90 year. I think he's going to be top 3 in assists as well. They're going to win a lot of games. He's going to close a lot of games. He's I'm not really expecting too much from him defensively, but that's never won anybody the MVP award. So I don't want to say that doesn't matter, but in terms of him winning MVP, I just feel like him doing what he's been doing, he's already said scoring in the league is easier than it was overseas. And he's getting better year by year. So if he has that in his mind already, I don't see what's possibly going to stop him. from completely turning this league into his own playhouse.
Yeah.
And what I love about Luka too is he looks like he's moving in slow motion, but he yet gets past every single person and is
Literally.
able to create space.
Exactly.
But the thing is, he was top 3 in MVP running. I actually wanted him to win. I was rooting for him, even as a Laker fan, and LeBron being in the running. I was rooting for him to win MVP. The fact that he didn't, I think, just builds that fire under him to go out and win it as well.
Yeah.
But just in the playoffs alone, when he was going up against the Clippers, as a Laker fan, he can't stand the Clippers. But I was sitting in my dad's backyard. He has a TV back there. Me and my brother were watching the Clippers game. I think when they went to overtime, and I told my brother, I tapped him on the shoulder because he's a huge basketball fan. I'm like, watch this man cook. This man hit a buzzer beater, and we both went crazy. And my stepmom looked in the back yard and just started laughing because we scared the shit out of her. Because we started hugging each other like if we just won the championship. So if he can definitely close games, and I'm expecting that to continue. He's definitely an exciting player to watch. He's definitely one of my favorite players to watch. LeBron mentioned it in an interview most recently. He's one of his favorite players in the league too. So
I mean,
he's only going to get better from here. But to wrap up the episode, we're just going to go around the room real quick and make your predictions for who's your final 4 in the league in terms of the conference finals and the championship. You don't need any explanation. Just give us your prediction, and we'll wrap it up from there. Denzel, let's start off with you.
Okay. So you want Eastern Conference final, Western Conference final, and then NBA final?
Yes. Just
we're doing finals as well?
Yeah, just final 4 and final 2. Just your prediction.
Yeah, so I would say Eastern Conference Finals for me, it's going to be Boston and Brooklyn. Western Conference Finals is going to be Golden State and LA. And then NBA Finals is going to be LA and Boston.
Like that.
I guess I'll follow up with you, Denzel, because I'm in agreement with you. I have Boston, Brooklyn, I don't agree with the Golden State though. So, but I agree with you in terms of the finals being Boston, LA. But in terms of the West, I have Lakers, Blazers. I like the Blazers. I like what they did this offseason. They were in the running for biggest winner of the offseason. That team is deep. If you look at the roster, it's kind of hard to find a flaw.
Facts.
Although I did say in our break that I think they need to move on from McCollum in order to make that leap to win a championship. Possibly Harden being that replacement. I do think they still can make the conference finals, and I think they got better from last season. So I think Lakers, Blazers, Celtics, Nets, and then the finals being Lakers, Celtics.
Okay.
Harvey, you could go.
I've also had Lakers, Blazers. I feel like that. Actually, Dame is one of my sleepers for MVP. I think he'll have an even better year than he's had already. I feel like it's something he wants at this point. Him not having a single anything to his name, really. I feel like he thinks he has the team now where he can really compete and really show he's an elite player in this league, which we already know. But there's always how the media treats him like he's just another player who just can't get it done. And the Lakers are the Lakers. And on the East side, I have the Celtics and the Nets. I think the Celtics will finally get over the hump and get to the finals. I think after this year, I think the Nets probably get there for the next 2 or 3 years. But I do think that Boston gets over that hump. And then I got Lakers, Boston, Lakers in 6.
He just picked the Lakers. I guess his own team.
Yeah, it's tough.
Lakers in 5, sir. Lakers in 5.
I don't know.
So for my picks in the West, I'm actually going to go Lakers, Mavs. And then in the East, I'm going to go with Brooklyn, Boston, and I got a Lakers, Brooklyn finals. I think that obviously having nearly a brand new team is going to be different for Brooklyn, but they have more than enough talent to figure things out even if it takes up to midway to the season. I mean, we saw it when, LeBron and D-Wade and Bosh teamed up first in Miami. It was like, at first, everybody was like, what's going on? They looked terrible. And then they started picking up as the season went on. And obviously, we saw them make the finals. They didn't win it, which is, I think, exactly going to happen this year. But yeah, I expect them to start off slow. But I do think Brooklyn is going to get there. I think they're going to beat the Celtics. And the Lakers, obviously, picked the champions of last year. They really just got so much better. I don't think Luka and Kristaps and the Mavs will have enough to dethrone them just yet in the West. I think eventually they will get there. But I got the Lakers and Brooklyn Nets in the finals.
All right, guys. So that's all we have for you guys today. We hope you guys enjoyed this NBA special. I know I enjoyed this conversation. It was a great conversation to go through. But also, I want to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you, Harvey. Thank you, Denzel. Go make sure to go check out Harvey's music. Go look for Don from '96, and the Expansion Pack podcast. I'll let them plug away. There you go. This is your chance. So plug again.
Yeah. So once again, check out the Expansion Pack podcast. We're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, pretty much anywhere. So make sure to check us out. Me, myself, I do stream on Twitch here and there. Check me out on Twitch at BlackIce8. Check me out on my Instagram at BlackIce8_gaming. And talk to you guys later. Thanks for having me on the podcast, by the way.
Of course, man.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for taking a good chunk of your day out to do this with us. We really appreciate it.
Facts, definitely.
All right, Harvey, you got any plugs? I know you plugged. Feel free.
Twitter. Catch me on Twitter, Don from96. That's where you'll find me at most of the time. Starting January 1st, I will be streaming music all over the place. Right now, you can just find me on SoundCloud, Don from96. Got a bunch of music on there if you guys want to gist of what I do. I know Dev said he played the song. That song actually isn't even released yet, but that song will be coming out on the 1st, so look out for that. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Well, thank you for joining us. Like I say all the time, make sure to go like, follow, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you enjoyed what you've seen today. If you haven't already, and hopefully we can have some similar conversations moving forward with the new year coming around. But thank you guys for tuning in as usual. Until next time.
Yeah.
Peace.
You're talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.